Most people pass by street singers without listening, but this story begins with a laugh that would soon turn into silence. It was a busy afternoon in London, the kind where the streets never sleep and footsteps never slow down. And near a subway exit, a young Filipino street singer stood with a worn-out guitar, a small speaker, and a cardboard sign asking for nothing but attention. His name was Miguel. He wore faded clothes, his shoes were old, and his guitar case had more scratches than shine, but his eyes were calm, focused, and hopeful. He sang not to beg, not to impress, but because music was the only language he truly knew. As people rushed past, some dropped coins, others ignored him, but Miguel kept singing with quiet confidence. Across the street stood a British music producer named Oliver Hayes, a man with years of industry success, expensive taste, and a reputation for discovering talent only in studios and elite stages. He had just finished a meeting nearby and noticed the small crowd forming around the singer. Curious at first, Oliver walked closer, listened for a few seconds, then smirked. He whispered to a colleague and laughed, saying this kind of street performance would never make it in the real music world. His laugh was light, dismissive, careless, the kind that cuts deeper than insults. Miguel heard it. He felt it. But he did not stop singing. Instead, he closed his eyes, tightened his grip on the guitar, and chose a song that came straight from his childhood. A melody his mother used to hum back in the Philippines when life was hard and dreams felt far away. The moment he started singing again, something changed. His voice rose with emotion, raw but controlled, gentle but powerful, filled with longing, pain, hope, and honesty. People slowed down. The phones came out. Conversation stopped. The noise of the city faded behind his voice. Oliver's laughter faded too. He stopped talking mid-sentence and turned fully toward Miguel. This was not just singing. This was storytelling through sound. Miguel's voice cracked at the right moments, soared when needed, and carried a sincerity that could not be taught in any music school. The crowd grew larger. Some people wiped their eyes. Others stood frozen. A child stopped tugging at his mother's hand. Even the street seemed to listen. Oliver felt uncomfortable, not because the performance was bad, but because it was undeniably good. He tried to hide his reaction, but the truth was settling in. This street singer had something rare. Something real. Miguel finished the song, and silence followed, heavy and emotional, before the street exploded with applause. People cheered, clapped, shouted encouragement. Miguel bowed his head slightly, humble and thankful. Oliver stood still, stunned. The laugh he gave earlier now felt embarrassing. Against his instinct, he stepped forward and spoke to Miguel, asking where he learned to sing like that. Miguel answered simply, saying he learned from life, from family, from singing during long nights when hope was all he had. Oliver asked him to sing again, this time something English. Miguel nodded and began another song, this one softer, controlled, intimate. This time there was no doubt. Oliver saw it clearly, the tone, the control, the emotion, the natural phrasing. This was talent untouched by industry tricks. When Miguel finished, Oliver introduced himself properly, not as a producer, but as someone who wanted to listen. He admitted he laughed earlier, not out of cruelty, but out of ignorance. Miguel smiled gently and said he was used to being underestimated. That honesty hit harder than anger ever could. Oliver invited Miguel to visit a studio the next day. No promises, no contracts, just a chance. Miguel hesitated. He had heard stories like this before, but something in Oliver's voice was different now. Respect had replaced arrogance. The next day, Miguel walked into a professional recording studio for the first time in his life. He looked around in awe, nervous but composed. When he stepped into the booth and put on the headphones, his hands shook slightly, but once the music started, everything else disappeared. He sang as if the room did not exist, as if the microphone was another street corner, as if the world was listening again. The engineers stopped working. Oliver stared through the glass, speechless. The raw recording sent chills through the room. No auto-tune, no tricks, just voice. When Miguel finished, the silence returned, deeper than before. Oliver removed his headphones slowly and said one sentence that would change everything. "I was wrong. Those words mattered more than any contract. Within weeks, Miguel's recordings spread quietly through industry circles. Producers asked questions, executives wanted meetings, but Miguel stayed grounded. He continued singing on the streets not because he had to, but because that was where his story began. One evening, Oliver joined him again on the street, standing beside him this time, watching strangers stop, listen, and feel. This time, there was no laughter, only respect. Soon after, Miguel released his first official song online. It did not explode overnight, but it grew steadily, shared by people who recognized honesty when they heard it. Interviews followed. People asked about the laugh, the street, the moment everything changed. Miguel always answered calmly, saying that laughter did not break him, it tested him. Oliver spoke publicly too, admitting that talent does not wear expensive clothes or wait in studios. Sometimes it sings on sidewalks, waiting for someone humble enough to listen. Miguel's life changed, but his spirit did not. He sent money home to his family in the Philippines. He supported other street performers. He returned to that same subway exit, not to prove anything, but to remind himself where his voice found strength. The British producer who once laughed now sat quietly in the crowd whenever Miguel sang, no longer judging, only listening. What shocked everyone was not just that a street singer became recognized, but that a single moment of humility transformed two lives. One learned that dreams can survive mockery. The other learned that greatness often arrives unannounced. And, in the middle of a noisy city, a Filipino street singer reminded the world that real music does not need permission to exist.